In our previous episode, we talked about fear isolation and how it sort of competes with loving connection. What about what scares therapists? We're going to launch a new series today about what scares therapists.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
As always, we want to say thank you for your work. We really mean it. I was at a training recently, and someone was talking about how introverted they are and how much energy it takes even to be social. And then this person started talking about these difficult cases and showing some video and just what a warrior this person is and how much energy it takes to get in there and sometimes fight with people to then fight for people. And so I respect what you're doing, especially if, part of the way you exist in the world isn't such a perfect fit for EFT, which I think is true in some way for everybody. So thank you for your hard work. So James, this was your idea, this new series we're doing, coming alongside what scares therapists. Tell me about why you thought about this series and et cetera.
Yeah, going out to training and looking into the eyes of therapists who are dedicating extra time, extra energy, extra finances to train in an experiential model to help people stuck in relational and emotional distress. And in the course of the training, by the way, I'm just seeing the comprehension that people are coming to EFT trainings with is definitely, it feels like it's above where I was.
Agree. Not above you, but it's going up. Yeah.
That's okay. You can agree it's above me because it was. Like their working knowledge of attachment is amazing. But anyway, what I noticed was they would keep asking these questions along the way. Like the moment I would just start talking about attachment, it'd be like day one of externship. And it's just like, hey, here's EFT and here's the basic framework. What about? And that's what I joke is like, here we go. We're about to hit the what about questions. I always tell the facilitators at some point, they're going to hit the what abouts.
Right.
And the what abouts always have this theme to it. What about the place that scares me? What about when it gets hard? What about when they don't this? What about? It's like almost like it's like the form of an anxious signal. Not saying anything bad about them, but what it's saying is, I have this future-based fear or concern when this will not work, right? Or where it breaks down at. Because these therapists have already been working at it and trying, and they have just like this is the spot that gets me. And so what I've learned is we've got to come alongside. That's one. Also in supervision, I find that there's therapists are actually brilliant. And there's times like, how did I say? It was Yolanda, a trainer out of Vancouver in Canada. And she said something. I wish I had thought about Yolanda's quote. It just hit me now. But what Yolanda said to these therapists was brilliant. She says, when you're able to ground yourself and kind of catch yourself as a therapist, you have access to way more tools and wisdom than what you know. Catch that statement.
It's good.
When you are able to calm yourself down and regulate your own self as a therapist, you have way more access to tools and wisdom than you know. So thank you, Yolanda, for that quote. I'm paraphrasing it. I'll try and find the exact words because I'm sure it'll come up again on this episode, in this series. And she's right. So when I'm working with these people, I say, so can we slow down? Help set that moment for me again. And if you have that moment back with your body regulated now, what might you want to say or do with that? And more times than not, they go to a good option. I said, so what's the difference now than when you were then? Their emotion just hit me and I got afraid. Right. So that makes so much sense. So thank you. So in other words, what I found was it's not, and I'm not, by the way, I agree with Ryan with thanking you. This is in no way to like shame you. It's to say, how do we come alongside your nervous system and help you out there? So part of what this series is going to be about is, one, honoring the moments that y'all are talking about. And yes, equipping you with some kind of focus and tools or process, just kind of, what Ryan and I do here, talking about the process and breaking it down. but also just normalizing it. So that way, when it comes back in front of you next time, at least this is how it runs through James's body. I remember when George taught the TERRA acronym. Sorry if you don't know TERRA. You probably will hear it in this series now. But it's when there's reactivity and there's a lot of like people just keep jumping in and interrupting through the session. When George taught me that and we did some rounds and repetition through it, my therapy changed. One, because it gave me a process and a framework to work with the reactivity in front of me. And that's where I normally get scared. And now it's like, I don't have to stay away from the reactivity. I'm like, oh, there it is. And I just kind of breathe like, here we go, terror. And I just say it inside my head, this is the terror place. So hold on, y'all. I got to jump back in. Let me jump back in here. And I'd steal the Ryan phrase. Because if I don't jump back in, you're going to leave here feeling worse than when you came in. And both of you are trying to say something so important at the same time, but neither one of you are going to hear each other. And once again, you're going to feel worse. So let me jump in. And then, anyway, I'm not going to give you the whole terror thing right now.
But if you have a structure, it grounds you.
Exactly.
And to her point, if it grounds you, you do have some resources. And by resources, I don't think she means solutions to the client's problem.
No.
Meaning you actually probably do know some next steps on the same map.
Exactly.
Which mirrors your clients, by the way.
That's right.
You know, when they go too fast, when the emotions are not given space, when they're not granular, when they're not clear, they get stuck in protection moves. So we do the same thing with our bodies. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. So that's what we hope to do in this podcast or this series. And so there's kind of like, in a way, 3 areas, but they're kind of overlap each other. Is we're going to be looking at particularly like, you know, what scares therapists. Typically what I hear is reactivity in the session, emotional reactivity. And usually what they're talking about is a reactivity where things get loud and fast. But also therapists talk about the kind of reactivity where maybe the partners involved shut down, because that is a form of reactivity, and maybe go into ambivalence. We're going to talk about blocks, which is still like a form of reactivity. And then we're also going to talk about a lot of therapists that get scared around enactments. Getting into enactments, people like kind of not like you ask them to turn and share one thing, but then they escalate and go do another thing. Or they always say, but what if the other partner can't do it? What if the other partner or partners just can't do it and won't take it in? So we'll break that down and talk about that. But for right now, we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break, and then we'll come back. Do you believe in the mission of this podcast for you, for your colleagues, and for your clients? If you do, we'd like to invite you to invest with us.
Yeah, nothing happens without an investment. I believe in the things that we're talking about make a difference in people's lives, like real lives that affect generations. So we'd love it if you'd invest with us. For sure, if you're having difficulties financially, please do not give. If you serve a very underserved population, do not give. But if the ideas from this podcast you use professionally, we'd love to invite you to invest with us to keep this thing going. Yeah, all right. Welcome back. I'm excited about this series. You got me over here taking notes.
All right.
That's a great point about the questions that come up in trainings. You know, I don't know that I've thought about it. I call that the this and the that moment. You call it the whatabouts?
Whatabouts.
Okay, I like whatabouts. This and the that. You know, I'm halfway through a concept of teaching EFT, and they're like, okay, but how do you apply this to that? And I'm like, well, you got to know this before you can know how to apply it to that. But what you're very EFT of you to recognize, that's a fearful moment. Not so much I need lots of instruction moment. It's almost like therapists also need someone to come alongside them and co-regulate their fear. To recognize that they can do hard things. We can go into hard places. In fact, honestly, what valuable thing in life is easy? Hardly anything, right? And so we do the hard work because it's important. So that's good. So we're looking through these 3 categories, which do overlap, but I think it's important. Reactivity, blocks, and around enactments. That's what we're going to focus our series on. And when therapists get afraid, what they get scared of, you know, when these things become even less clear, you know, sometimes fear might take over. And they become very disoriented with the process. And then what I think I see happens there is sort of 2 forms of really strong fear starts to amplify in a way that's not controlled or a way that's not granular. One, I start to feel like I'm afraid, right? And I start to feel bad about me. And then I feel like I'm going to fail the clients. So now my body's really increasing. And then I think big picture, they start to get the sense, hey, maybe I can't do this, right? Maybe all these other EFT clinicians around the world or even just outside our model, maybe these other therapists are doing this great work. And here I am, the one who's not any good. And that is a painful place, right? That goes into what I think is mammalian greatest fear, which is that I don't belong, that I don't fit in this herd. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this episode and you feel that way, let me try to talk you out of your feelings. No, I'm joking. We don't want to do that in EFT, but I kind of just want to speak to it at least to say we've all been there, mm-hmm. and sometimes we still go there. What I hope for you is that you can see that those moments are a part of change. It's a part of the learning curve. It doesn't mean that case is going to be a loss. Definitely doesn't mean you're a loss. You're actually getting stuck in the same cycle they are. Oftentimes the very kinds of fears they're feeling, you're feeling. So it's ironically a form of empathy. And yet it does not feel like that in the moment. And you start to feel like you don't belong. And next thing you know, you can even, what I see is people can get angry sometimes, mad at the model. Maybe it's the wrong model. I need the new model that's going to make me not feel this way. And I'm not knocking your choice of models. You do what you have to do. But I think this is an important discussion that you're teeing up for us.
Man, thank you, Ryan. That was so good. You know, and Ryan and I work on these two different platforms. There's us here and Push the Leading Edge, and you're right. If you reach that place and you're like, whoa, this makes me feel bad, I don't even know what to do here. Can I offer you a reframe for a moment? You're in the right spot. That means you found the leading edge. It is going to push yours, but it is like you're at the leading edge of their experience, literally. And sometimes you want to, I'll go ahead and give you something practical because I know this episode might not be as practical. Say that out loud. Taken from Lisa Palmer. Oh, she's like, just be transparent. Because if you're feeling that in your body, it's probably just your body picking up on exactly the distress that they're feeling. Just make that explicit. Say, whoa, gosh, this even makes me feel lost. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, it makes me feel bad because I want to help you so much. Like, I can see how painful this is for you, for your relationship, for the people you care about. And like, it makes me feel like I don't know what to do. So can we slow down? Is this a cycle that gets you? I mean, I feel it in my body too. Just be transparent. But I get I love what Ryan caught, but it sends us so much bad messages about us. That to be lost, it's not actually attunement. What it typically tells us is something's wrong with me. It's all about me. I'm a failure. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. This cycle is so much bigger and better than me.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
Which shows you these moments that scare therapists, they're actually attachment events.
Exactly.
The danger's right there. It activates a lot of chaos and protection, even within us. And what sits below attachment every time, view of self, view of other. Is something wrong with me? Or is something wrong with my clients? Or is something wrong with this model I've chosen? And just how human this is, to be afraid of this, and how much courage it takes to keep coming back. So I hope that it doesn't come across as cliche every episode when we thank you. This is exactly what we mean, because we know what you're going into. And we know what it's like underneath to feel like you don't get it right. My perpetual fear is I've not read enough of the attachment literature, right? The 4,400 articles. You know, I'm like, how many have I really read? You know, and one day am I going to get exposed that I haven't read everything that Sue Johnson read? That crosses my mind before every training. Which is
you too?
Yeah. You know, and so that's what we're all in this. It's all as Sue says, we're all turkeys in the same soup or something she wrote. And so, you know, again, I hope that if you hear our voice, you recognize that this is a predictable part of going into these hard places. Yeah. And you're not alone.
That's right. One more cliche. And I appreciate, like, you know, Ryan, I also work on a success and vulnerability online training program to help therapists continue on in their learning at their own pace. But one of the things George says on success and vulnerability about the name is that it's not only about helping clients, but it's about helping therapists and their clients have success where they need it most. And that's in vulnerability. And so, you know, we talk about vulnerability for our clients, like the openness to possibly being wounded. But guess who else this therapy model is vulnerable for? The therapists. Because you are opening yourself to the possibility that, like, What if I don't know what to do? And just by the inherent nature of what we do in EFT is we trust that emotions are going to take us there, but we just don't know exactly how that's going to look every single time. So it is requiring some vulnerability for you to kind of release control and to follow and to let it lead you and guide you to the spot, not knowing exactly how it's going to go because you don't know. But you won't know, obviously, if you don't go there at all. So anyway, just wanted to help normalize and offer some more of those why this matters to us on this podcast about going to where therapists get afraid. Because let me tell a story on myself to be clear. You know, people will say, James, you know, how did you get better at EFT? I definitely practice in a way of staying in the areas where I felt comfortable and competent. So then I'd be always like in the session monitoring the emotional intensity. That's my kind of like withdraw nervous system and security system. Like, don't let things get too big because it's going to go bad, James. I could hear from my clients like the really painful areas. And I'm like, I would almost pull some of the risk out of those painful areas and like try and tamper it down to like not let it get big. I just did so much of guarding, of staying away from that potential scary place. But I also think that while there was doing some good things there, and there's some responsibility to do that at times, I think I was hedging some of my effectiveness. Because in my very effort to stay away is probably where my clients actually need to go. That's where the negative cycle takes. This is what I say when I do stage 2. This is where the negative cycle takes all your hopes and dreams and crushes them. And someone's got to go face that place. Because that's the pain that they're living with, is we don't know how to succeed over there. So I'm just telling them myself, I was scared to go there as a clinician, so therefore I couldn't lead them there. I wasn't being the stronger, wiser other at times. And when you say EFT unlocked in me, there was the cognitive learning. But when I said, you know what, I'm afraid, but we're still going. I'm going there with all the fear in my body. I can join them in their fear. And I could trust even when the pain, I remember one time, one of my clients, a pursuer, got really upset in session and she just let it flow out of her. And I found my body actually relaxed when she got mad. And I actually looked at her and I said, thank you. And she looked at me like, what do you mean, thank you? You're letting me see you. All that fear and that pain is all the protest and the pain that you hold back to protect other people from the energy in your body. But you let me see it. Now I understand you better. Then I thought to myself after that session, like, James, something's changing in you. You trust it. You trust it. Now your nervous system can say there's something good here. So, and now that just helps me go into, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, y'all, but now I'm not afraid of where it might go. So I can just trust the process and say, well, what if they don't? So when people say, James, but what if you do an enactment and they don't respond? I won't know until I try. So I'm not going to try and prevent that before I get there. I'll deal with it. And if they can't do it, then there's a good reason why their body can't do it. Just go get it. That's all. And then that opens up the next door for me. It's not a block. It's just an opportunity. Well, it is a block, but it's another opportunity, though. The block provides me another opportunity to understand them and to help them in their distress. So I don't know. That's what it is. That's what's in this for me.
That's good stuff, man. I'm writing it down over here. It gives me an episode idea. The idea of control and trying to balance how much, too much, not enough. That's good. I like it, right? That's what you just said, right? Because there's times and places your client needs you to take control. And there's times and places your body's telling you to take control as a therapist, which may not be so helpful. So there's your little teaser for the future. But what it makes me want to say, listening to your story right there, which I appreciate you sharing and the vulnerability of that, you know, the title of this series, what is it again?
What scares therapists?
What scares therapists? I just want to, my last remark on that for this episode is, don't forget it's the very best part of you.
Wow.
Right? So this is the place that, you know, it's your longings, it's your desire to help other people. It's what inspires you. And the fear is actually saying how much this means to you. So that's what's unfortunate about the cycle within the therapist is this is the very best part of you. Therefore, it's a fearful part. Therefore, it can spin us out. Right? Mm-hmm. You know, as my dad used to say, I was an athlete and I was nervous before every game. I talk to my kids sometimes. They're like, what? So, why are you nervous? And I'm like, oh, good. Don't be nervous. I was nervous before every game. So funny story. I love rain. I love rain. So whenever it thunders and lightens, I'm like, that feels great. And they're like, why do you love rain so much? Because as a little kid, if it rained one of my games out, I couldn't lose. I couldn't, I didn't have to be nervous. It's like, oh, it's a day off, right? So isn't it funny how that works? But my dad would say, and he was right, he's like, I want you to be afraid, because if you're afraid, it means that you really care. And so that's what we're saying to you all as we walk through this series, that you have such good reasons to be afraid. Not only that, because this is hard, but also this represents the very best part of you. That is inherently a resourceful part, because you long to help so much. So we want to honor that part of you. We want to walk along beside you and where you become afraid.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training, and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, dochawklpc.com.